So, welcome to the second episode of the Tower of Babylon. You are listening to Encrypted Codes series. It's a series that's designed to bring in all the ancient historical facts and then present them to you, all the proofs, and then we leave it on to you to make the astute judgment. Now, the Tower of Babylon, the reason I chose, with all the evidences, as the pioneer or the first episode, is because a lot of information and technology that we know of in the modern day world comes from Babylon. Now, ancient Babylonia was quite popular and famous at their epoch, and the reason that Babylon is associated with intergalactic technology revival. Now, in the further chapters in future, we are going to be exploring the ancient past before the great deluge, that is known in the theological circles as the time of the flood, Noah's Ark. The Tower of Babylon was built way after the great deluge. And there were loads of other deluges that happened in the history of this planet Earth 1.0. But not to confuse you right now, this mysterious tower that was built by a civilization that was hyper advanced in terms of astrophysics, electronics, and the quantum mechanics world. The cradle of civilization is known to be Ur, the city that existed in ancient Sumeria, and that is modern day Iraq. It was also known as Babylonia. This is where babbling comes from, because the language of that time was unified, a global unified language. Now, if you think from the modern day perspectives, we have two languages right now that are global. One is a language that we are using in the form of internet, all the technical jargons we are using, such as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all these new codes we are speaking, safe to say. And also, the global communication language is now English. So it makes you wonder how the past of the humanity was like back in the days, because the whole notion of history repeats itself. The cycle of time, the different yugs in the Bhagavad Gita, or the concept of karma, what goes around comes back around. These notions are attached to a scientific anomaly that history repeats itself and it comes back to you like a cycle. And to that, if you look at what Einstein has said, E equals mc square, it's a living example of the compressed version of history repeating itself. And as we know, what Oppenheimer did at the time of the atomic bombs, that is literally history repeating itself, and we are going to cover it in the later episodes. But for now, so Ur was a city. Now, the ancient humans who were living at that time, they came across a valley. The valley was known as Shinar, or in the ancient languages or the Semitic languages, it's known as Wadi Shinar, means the valley of Shinar. And that Shinar was present somewhere in the ancient Mesopotamia, which is Iraq nowadays. Now, why is it called Wadi Shinar? There is a hidden symbol in the name Shinar. The powerful word or the sound Sha is associated with the might, the fire, and the explosions within the hydrogen element. Sha means explosions in the form of fire and the conversion of one state of element to another, specifically hydrogen. For example, the sun is called Shamash or Ashams in the Semitic languages, and Sha is connected to the nuclear fusion process that will have a counter effect on fission. So the energy is compressed and then the energy fuses itself and then explodes outwards, releasing vast amount of heat and radiation. So the word Sha has this notion in its etymology. So Wadi Shinar is the place where they came. And when they came, this group of people, they decided to do experiments. There was something in the soil, and there was something in the air, and there was something in the environment that allowed them to think from experimental perspectives to start using biochemistry, quantum mechanics, nuclear physics to be able to create something that is built with just pure arrogance. Now, if you look at the history of humanity, that region is connected to a king named Nimrod. So there was an emperor, just like pharaohs. Nimrod is a title given to a pharaoh of that time, and that Nimrod title is given to the emperor of that epoch. Now, Nimrod is greater than a pharaoh. Why? That emperor existed prior to the pharaohs of the Kemites, means the Egyptian dynastic period. So, if you look at the timeline, the people of Nimrod and the king/emperor Nimrod came before the pharaohs of Egypt, and they had access to the technology prior to the Kemites. Where did Nimrod get his hands on that tech? Now I'm mentioning his, that means Nimrod title was given to a list of emperors, and the last one or the first one, and the Nimrod that decided to build that tower was the one who led this army of scientists, engineers, doctors, linguistics experts to come together and then create this tower. It has been reported in various theological doctrines, the Apocrypha, and the exegesis written by historians, archaeologists, linguists, and historians from the theistic perspectives and the atheistic perspectives. They found that Ur is the cradle of civilization, and it's universal because Ur is the place where the technological advancements in the modern day world of that epoch began. The tower is known to have amazing qualities from the scientific perspectives. The tower itself was a marvel, or the emblem of scientific and human achievements. Now in the ancient Torah, the Judaic scriptures talks about the people who were building the tower. And interestingly, the words that came to describe these people, the scientists, who were calling out their counterparts, their peers, They called them twice. There's a repetition of their words, the way they announced it globally as to come back or come and join them in their expedition and their experiment and the construction of the tower. So Ur became famous because in Wadi Shinar, the valley of Shinar, they found something in the soil and there's something in the sky that they can create a creation that can then allow them to travel beyond the skies, the atmosphere, or you can say the ceiling of the earth, or they can escape the electromagnetic pulls of the gravity that is present on earth. Now if you look deep into it, they managed to combine and compress and fuse different elements they were found in the soil. So think about it. There were few scientists. They've learned the art of fusion. Now fusion, it's the marriage of two or multiple different elements together to create something new and to create a form of energy that can be then utilized to create something else. To fuse certain elements, you need to have certain advancements in the technology at your hand. For example, in the creation of the motherboards or the mobile phone or the LCD screens that we have in our pockets. It requires a lot of engineering, creativity, lots of failures, lots of controlled failures, and also an in-depth overview of what works and what doesn't work, right? Now, if you think about it, since we found the access to technology from the electronics perspectives, and we've discovered electricity, and we've managed to go beyond the atmosphere of the earth by the use of the rockets, human arrogance has surpassed its boundaries. Now automatically we started to think that we can mess with the nature. Now messing with the nature, is it something smart? You know the answer. In 2004, when the tsunami came, we all know what happened. When hurricanes were visiting us unannounced and also announced, all that might, the greed, the arrogance of human beings and the reliance upon technology couldn't do anything. The destruction was insurmountable. Plenty of lives were lost. Plenty of lives were affected and are still affected. Now that human arrogance is stemming from the same roots as that of that cradle of civilization, the Ur, the Babylonia. When you look deep into the historical facts and also the legends and the myths and all the stories that are written around Babylonia and the Great Tower, there is one common narrative, the marvel of science and the worship of science. Now those people, they had access to the concept of fusion. There was something in the soil of Shinar that allowed them to start building bricks. They were cooking the soil, the sand, to create bricks. And then when you gotta pause here. In the Apocrypha and in the ancient scripture, the words that are used are indicating towards two things: construction of bricks and also putting fire under the bricks. Now if you look at the modern day advancements, we have the bricks in the form of ICs, and the fire can be translated as the electrical impulses that we are using in our motherboards. And if you combine it together, it creates energy, and that energy can be used at your own peril. Now that's a side point. But these ancient beings, and they're of course humans, were using the soil slash sand of Shinar to create bricks. And then, meanwhile, they were also inviting people who are skilled and more knowledgeable from across the globe. It indicates that there was a global civilization existing at that time, and also them calling out in desperation to invite everyone to live together. That matches perfectly with the biblical narrative that they all spoke the same language. That's why they were able to communicate. Now, what kind of language was that? Maybe some form of modern day jargon, or it can be a specific global language that was used to communicate effectively between them, and then create bricks, and then use them bricks to build that tower so that he can go up. Now think about that. They had the technology to create tower that can propel the rockets to the sky. That's what it means. What happened afterwards? Let's stay tuned to know more about this in the next episode.